Joining us now from Queen's Park with more is reporter Isaac Callan. Isaac, these numbers are upsetting. What do we know about these children and how they died?
Yeah, it's really startling new data that's leading to more questions than I think it's answered. What we found with an internal government report that we obtained was that in Ontario, over about 3 years, 354 children died who were either in the care of the state or on its radar. That means that those children were possibly with open case files. In fact, the majority had open case files. They were not necessarily in the care of the state under a Children's Aid Society, but instead perhaps living at home and on the radar of a social worker. And yet before they were ever taken into the care system, they died. We also found a lot of questions in the data itself. The fact that, for example, a third of the children who died, their cause of death was attributed to unknown. That means that the state wasn't able to investigate sufficiently how they died, still questions about how they might have died. And that's something that advocates say is indicative of a system in Ontario where some see at least a portion of these deaths as inevitable.
I think that's why we can have a kind of matter-of-fact attitude to the death of these children through the system because, and I've heard it in meetings from people responsible for the system. Erwin, children are going to die. We can't save them all. So children are going to die. And it is kind of an attitude that just accepts every 3 days a child's going to die.
So Isaac, what does this new information then suggest about the state of care and what's being done about it?
Well, the Ford government itself is in the middle of a review of Children's Aid Societies, something that the Premier has called an audit. But what that review is about and exactly what it's hoping to find and when are all pretty closely guarded questions. They're things we don't know the answer to. This is a file that historically the government has been quite tight-lipped about, cautious to talk about. For this data, for example, we reached out to the government. We asked for an interview with the minister to sit down and talk about the deaths of children in care or associated with care. And that's something that was declined, despite the fact we left an open timeline for that interview to take place. So you've really been left with data that advocates have called terrifying, advocates calling for answers, for more action, and for someone to really dig into these numbers in a way that goes beyond the surface, beyond the figures we have now, and starts to tell the story of the children who've died.
All right, that is our Isaac Callan reporting for us from Queen's Park. Thank you, Isaac. And to read more on this story, you can head over to our website, globalnews.ca/Toronto.